Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Victoria Montefusco and I love talking about makeup, all different sorts of makeup, especially eyeshadow. So today I'm going to be doing the eyeshadow palette tag. I know I'm really late to this, but since I just created my YouTube channel and since I really love eyeshadow palettes, I thought this would be a perfect video for me to film for all you guys. So if you enjoy videos like this, if you love makeup, if you especially love all things sparkly and shiny and pretty on your eyes, you should definitely subscribe to my channel, leave a like on this video, and leave a comment if you have any requests on any types of videos that you would like to see me film. So let's jump into it. The first question of the eyeshadow palette tag is, what is your newest palette? So my newest palette is the Huda Beauty Medium Nude Obsessions palette. I actually got this palette for Christmas from my parents, so thank you for that. And this palette really just gives you a good neutral base to do your eyeshadow. So it's all medium toned nudes. We have mattes and we have shimmers. And so I've actually used this palette once already on my eyes, and I must say it's really good quality, like the other Huda Beauty palettes that I own. So very happy with this palette so far. The next question is, what is your oldest palette? And I'm sure this palette is the oldest palette in a lot of people's collections. And if you would have asked me about a year ago, the answer would have been the Urban Decay Naked palette, but I decluttered it since it was really old and discontinued. So the answer currently is the Anastasia Modern Renaissance palette. I'm sure you all have seen this palette. I feel like this palette completely changed the way that we all do makeup. So my palette, as you can see, oop, there goes the brush, is very well loved. I have panned plenty of shades in here. I absolutely love this palette. I still love this palette. I actually got this palette in high school. I remember when it came out and it was all hyped on YouTube, and so I asked for it and my parents bought it for me in high school, and I just love this palette, and it really just changed the game for me, and it made me realize that there was a whole world of warm tone neutrals out there that I didn't really know about. So Anastasia Modern Renaissance is currently my oldest palette. So the next question is, what is your most expensive palette? So we actually have quite the tie here. So basically all of my Pat McGrath Mothership palettes, this is just one of them. These are my most expensive palettes. This palette will be making another appearance later on in the video, so oops, sorry about that. So I own 4 of the, I believe, 8 Mothership palettes, and this is just one of them. So these are all retail originally for $125 each. I did not pay that price. I got them all on sale, and I'm planning on getting some more of them on sale as well when Pat McGrath has another sale. So Mothership's most expensive even when they're on sale. The next question is your least expensive palette, and this one was really hard for me just because when it comes to eyeshadows, I really tend to use only higher end brands most of the time. I just feel like when it comes to eyeshadow, it's worth paying a little bit more to get that increased quality. So up until really recently, my most affordable palette would have still been kind of up there in price. But I recently started buying some ColourPop again after a few years of not buying from them really at all. And so I've gotten a few ColourPop palettes in my collection recently, and this is one of them. This is the ColourPop Baroque palette. I think this retails for about $12, and this came out this winter, and I think it might have been part of their holiday collection. I don't really know. ColourPop comes out with tons of collections all the time, and I feel like this was released close to their holiday collection, so I don't know if this was a holiday palette or not. So this palette from ColourPop just has so many cool tones. I really like it, and I really bought this palette to fill a hole in my collection just because I didn't really have many cool tones. So this has been really good to play with some cool tones and, you know, not break the bank while doing so. So the Baroque palette is definitely my least expensive palette. The next question is my everyday palette, and I feel like this one is really difficult just because I'm the kind of person who likes to play with different eyeshadow palettes every day. So I don't really have an everyday palette. especially since I own so many eyeshadow palettes. So thinking about this question, I was like, okay, what's a palette I find myself reaching for a lot recently? Just a palette I keep going back into. So this palette for me is the Nabla Side by Side palette. So I actually got this palette along with a few other Nabla products, including their glitter quad, some brushes, and their mascara, which I'm actually wearing today. I got this palette and those products in the Trend Mood box that they collaborated with Nabla. So it's just a whole Nabla Trend Mood box. And I mostly got it for this palette just because I was intrigued. I saw this palette and I was like, this is a really interesting neutral palette. So this is what it looks like. And I feel like this is sort of the amped up, expanded, dare I say better version of the Anastasia Soft Glam palette, which I also own. So in here you have warm tone neutrals, you have cool tone neutrals, you have neutrals with a neutral undertone. I mean, you really have everything in here. And these metallics are just stunning. They are so beautiful on the eyes, especially this one right here, called Better Society. That one on your lid is just really a complete wet look. Absolutely love that. And these mattes just blend so seamlessly. They're so stunning on the eyes. Unlike Anastasia, they aren't super powdery, so this is why I say it's like kind of an improved version of Soft Glam. So the Side by Side palette, I just find myself reaching into over and over and over again. And so this is why I would say it's more of like my everyday palette, at least as close as an everyday palette as I personally have. The next question is my most colorful palette. So when thinking about this question, my mind first jumped to another palette that I own that I'm actually going to mention later on because it fits into my biggest palette category. But I was thinking about it and I was like, you know what? Other than that palette, this is definitely my most colorful palette. So this is the Glamlite Cake palette. This was the first product I ever tried from Glamlite, and this really made me fall in love with the brand. So I'm going to show you what it looks like. It's in this cute little oven packaging. So opening that up, you see the palette, which is in the shape of a cake, is in the oven. How cute. And as someone who loves to bake, I think this is just adorable. So this is what the palette looks like, and it opens up like this. And as you can see, this is basically just a rainbow palette. As Angelica Nikovist always says, the rainbow is not a color story. It's like always curated for you. That's my misquote of what her quote is. But I bought this palette because I didn't have any rainbow palettes, and Angelica and Amy Loves Makeup and a few other YouTubers that I watch just raved about Glamlite's formula and how amazing their mattes are, and especially how amazing their shimmers are. So that's why I bought this palette. I feel like it really filled a hole in my collection in that now I have a whole bunch of rainbow shades just bam, right in one palette. And I find this palette really inspiring. I personally do love the formula, and it made me purchase more from Glamlite in the future. So my most colorful palette is definitely the Cake palette. The next question is, what is your smallest palette? And for this question, we actually have a tie, and these are the Huda Beauty like Gemstone Obsessions palettes. I have two of them. I have the Emerald and the Ruby. Actually, on Huda Beauty's website right now, these are on sale for a pretty good discount. So I think that means they're going to be discontinued because I didn't see the green one on Sephora anymore anyways. But these are really good palettes. These were the first ever products I tried from Huda Beauty, and I don't own much from the brand, but I do really enjoy these palettes. So I'm first going to show you this green one, the Emerald Obsessions. And so this is what it looks like, and you just have a really good variety of greens in here. Mattes, really nice. Metallics, again, really beautiful on the lid. I especially love this shade up here in the top corner. I just feel like this is the most beautiful like pastel mint metallic. So this is what the Emerald Obsessions looks like. I really enjoy it. And also I have the Ruby Obsessions. So opening this one up, this is just a warm lover's dream. I mean, look at all of these reds and corals in here. I personally don't use this one as much as the green one just because I really like green eyeshadow and I don't really reach for reds as much. But I bought this palette because I wanted more reds in my collection, and this achieves that. And again, it's the same great Huda Beauty formula that's in the green palette. So those are my smallest palettes, the Huda Beauty Obsessions palettes. They are actually, these ones are actually a little bit smaller than the one that I mentioned in the beginning of the video, which are the Nude Obsessions palette. So let me grab that one real quick to show you. So as you can see, this ruby one is a little bit smaller than this nude one. So this is why these ones win as for smallest palette. So my biggest palette by a long shot is the Glam Light Ice Cream Dream palette. I mean, look at this thing. It is huge. This is actually the outer packaging that it comes in, but even opening it up, it's a big palette. So here's what it looks like out of the outer ice cream truck packaging. So this was the palette that I was going to say was my most colorful, because I mean, look at all these colors, it's a lot. But I decided I didn't really want any repeats if I could avoid it. So this is why it's in this category, and it wasn't repeated in the most colorful category. So I really like this palette. Again, I really like Glam Light's formula. One thing I will say is I do wish this palette was smaller. I feel like this more neutral part of the palette in the top section could have been cut down and maybe put into another palette, just because a lot of these shades I already own in my collection, and I was really buying this for those bright pastels. I mean, I do like those shades and I have used them, but it just seems kind of, I don't know, repetitive with other things that I have in my collection, and it really would have helped with the size problem of this palette. But I really do like this palette. I think it's great, but it definitely is the biggest palette in my collection, and I do not think I will be buying any palettes bigger than this for my collection, just because it is kind of a pain to store. The next category is a palette that is worth the hype, and I kind of cheated. I actually have 3, but they're all related, as you'll see. So these are the BH Cosmetics Sweet Shop palettes. So I own 3 out of the 6 of them, and I've actually done a video trying all these, giving these my first impressions, and doing some swatches, so you should definitely check out that video if you're interested. But these palettes are really, really good, and I can see why they were so hyped up when they released. So BH originally released these earlier in 2020, and they sold out, especially this green one and this blue one right here. These two sold out like hotcakes. So they were really, really just wanted by people that are in the beauty community. And eventually BH Cosmetics listened to our hopes and prayers and pleas and decided to re-release them about a month ago. So I ordered them on that re-release, and I really enjoyed playing with these. So I'm gonna show you real quick each palette, just in case you haven't seen my video on these palettes as a whole. So this is the pistachio one, the green one. This is probably my favorite of the 3, just because I really enjoy greens, especially this shade up here called Sweet Life in the top, for me, right corner, for you probably left. So this shade up here is just a beautiful, like more sparkly metallic texture. Absolutely love it. So this palette is great. Love, love, love how these perform, especially the mattes are really blendable and pigmented, so no complaints here. Here is the Blueberry palette. Again, same great formula. Absolutely love this palette as well. And here is the one that sold out this time. So this is the Cotton Candy palette. This is the only one of the 3 that I have that as of filming is currently not available. I know, kind of sad, but this is this one as well. Actually, I would say out of the 3, this is my least favorite, just because I feel like out of those 3 color schemes, I tend to reach for like pinks and purples the least. So the BH Cosmetics Sweet Shop palettes, definitely worth the hype, and definitely glad that I picked up 3 of them from the re-release. I feel like this next opinion of mine is a little controversial, and that I do not like this palette. Oops, I'm sorry if this hurts any of your feelings. This isn't anything personal, it's just not a formula I've been jiving with. So this is the Alter Ego Artemis palette. I know, I don't like it. I feel like I'm the only one who doesn't like it. So this palette is supposed to be a dupe of the Natasha Denona Metropolis palette, which released last year during holiday. And it's actually still available. But that palette retails for like $125 or like $129. And there was no way my first Natasha Denona palette was going to be that expensive. I'm like, nope, nope, nope. So I decided to buy the Alter Ego dupe. I like certain formulas in this palette. I like the metallics and I like the classic powder mattes. It's just the problem here for me is there's these cream to powder mattes that I just do not like. And that's most of the mattes in here. Most of the mattes in here are not your traditional powder mattes. They are cream to powder mattes. So I feel like the cream to powder shadows, you can't really pick them up on a brush. They basically can only really be picked up on your finger. But no matter how you apply them, they just don't show up very pigmented. It feels like you have to keep layering them and layering them and layering them. And I don't really want to work that much to get the pigment that I want. I would much prefer to work with a powdery pigmented shadow like the Anastasia formula, for example, and have to deal with a little bit of fallout versus dealing with these cream to powders that don't have any fallout but just like no pigment on the eyes. Do not enjoy that. So because most of the mattes in here are that cream to powder formula, I feel like I can't really get a cohesive look from just using this palette, and therefore I think it was kind of overhyped and I'm not really a fan of it, so oh well. So when I was thinking about this, I was having kind of trouble just like thinking about which palettes are associated with memories, just because I don't really have many palettes that I associate with one particular memory. But then I saw this one hanging out in the back of my palette collection, and I was thinking to myself, why have I kept this? And then I remembered why. So this is the Tarte Clay Play palette. So this palette is just neutral mattes. It is literally neutral mattes. And it's a really good palette, and I must say, it actually smells really good. It kind of smells like vanilla, and I'm not mad about that. But the reason why I've kept this palette and the reason why I chose it for this category is because this is the palette I was wearing on my eyes when I went on my first date with my boyfriend like 3.5 years ago. Oh my goodness, time flies. So this was the palette I was wearing when I met him. I actually met him on Tinder, fun fact. And this is the palette that really started it all. I mean, 3.5 years later, we're still going strong. So this is why this palette is my choice for this category. And actually, when we were on the date, funny story, quick funny story, the waitress at the restaurant that we went to said that I looked like a Hollywood movie star. So that's also a good memory from that night as well. So the Tarte Clay Play, I'm not sure if I'll keep this in my collection forever. I don't really reach for it anymore. But I always look at this palette and I always remember that first date with my boyfriend, and that's why I keep it for now. Whew, we're getting into the home stretch here. Okay, second to last category, which is my favorite palette from my favorite brand. And this is the Pat McGrath Midnight Sun palette making another appearance. So Pat McGrath is one of my favorite eyeshadow brands. Is she worth the $125 price point? Probably not, because I feel like for it to be worth that much, it would literally just like have to make me fly, be made out of real gold, give me magical powers, you know, all that good stuff. But is this palette really, really good? And is Pat McGrath's formula really, really good? And the answer is yes. So I love Pat McGrath. I feel like her formulas are unique, and I've talked plenty about her on my channel, but I'm not ever gonna stop talking about her. So this is the Midnight Sun palette. And as you can see, this palette has neutral mattes. This palette has these beautiful Blitz Astral shades in that corner, which really are my favorite metallic formula of all time, full stop. And what I really love about this palette is that it has inspired me to combine some colors in a way I would have never thought of. So we have this beautiful like mid-tone purple right here, and then we have right above it this beautiful metallic like coppery orange color. I would have never thought to combine those two colors into one look ever before until I saw this. And so this palette has really inspired me to play around with that color combination. Also, I just love all of the Blitz Astral shades in here. The regular shimmers are also great. The mattes are just really versatile. So overall, this is my favorite palette from my favorite brand because I love Pat McGrath and I just really love this palette. So what more is there to say? The last category, woohoo! So this is my most used palette, and if you have been watching the entire video, you will not be surprised because you've already seen this palette. And this is the Anastasia Modern Renaissance. Since it's my oldest palette, yeah, it figures that it's my most used, but literally when I got this in high school, there goes the brush again, I used this palette basically every single day. I mean, every single day on my eyes. This shade, which is called Golden Ochre, I always used in my crease. This shade, which is Red Ochre, I always use in my outer corner pretty much. And this shade, Cypress Umber, I also always use in my outer corner. And Primavera, which is like the most pan shade, I basically always use it on my lid. And I have good dents. I actually have a little bit of pan in Bon Fresco as well, which I also love using in my crease. I have a good amount of dents in Vermeer and Tempera and Burnt Sienna and Raw Sienna and Warm Taupe. I mean, basically every single shade in this palette, I could just listen being like, yeah, I have a good dent in there. So this palette I have used basically to death. I still like this palette. I feel like the mattes stand the test of time. The shimmers, not as much. I feel like the metallics I prefer now are a lot more just like bam, glittery, like metallic. And these are a lot more like soft, gentle, ooh, wash of shimmer and glitter, which is not really my thing. This is my most used palette. I don't reach for it nearly as much as I used to, but it's still definitely a palette that I want to keep in my collection because I still really enjoy it. So that is my take on the eyeshadow palette tag. Now that I am like covered in glitter and eyeshadow from holding up all these palettes, I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked this video, please like this video. If you like me, I would really appreciate it if you hung around and would subscribe. If you have any sort of requests for video types that you would like to see on my channel, please leave a comment. And it was great talking to you all about eyeshadow palettes because that's like literally my favorite thing to talk about. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.